Hey everyone, welcome to this explainer. When we think of artificial intelligence, it usually feels kind of magical, right? Pristine, perfectly clean. But today, we're going to completely shatter that illusion. We're diving into the hidden human workforce that's actually out there making AI safe for the rest of us.
It's a question we almost never think about. Like, who really keeps AI safe? When we're using a chatbot to write a quick email or just scrolling through our highly curated TikTok feeds, we rarely stop and ask, hey, who actually filters out all the violence and harm? Who is literally standing between us and the absolute worst the internet has to offer?
Well, to quote one Kenyan data worker directly, we do not feel valued at all. And honestly, that is the harsh reality for a massive shadow workforce of data annotators. We're talking about international tech corporations relying on workers in places like Nairobi, Kenya, to sift through incredible amounts of toxic, harmful data. And they're often doing this for mere pennies per task. So let's get into Section 1, the descent, from traffic signs to trauma. To really understand what this work looks like on the ground, let's talk about Joan Kinyua. She's a single mother in Kenya who took up data annotation just to support her family. And it actually started out pretty innocently. She was just labeling photos of vehicles, trees, and road signs in San Francisco, basically just helping the AI identify everyday visual patterns.
But it didn't stay innocent for long. Over time, those tasks shifted drastically. Instead of everyday objects, she was suddenly categorizing extreme violence, pornography, and blood. Joan found herself working these grueling 18-hour shifts, sometimes until 3 in the morning, all while pregnant. Eventually, the constant daily exposure to all this digital darkness led her to experience severe, hidden anxiety.
Which brings us to Section 2, the psychological toll. Because this terrifying escalation, it isn't just an isolated incident for Joan. It's actually a pretty universal experience for the data annotators we're profiling in this explainer.
Take Stacy, for example. She was an aspiring journalist who signed a non-disclosure agreement to tag content for a major platform. Her daily reality meant processing up to 200 videos an hour. And get this, 70% of those videos contained graphic violence. She spent her days tagging horrifying things like car accidents and people burning alive. The video that broke her was witnessing a mother harming her baby. This work left Stacy with lasting nightmares, and she says it fundamentally changed her view of humanity.
And you know what the most shocking number in all of this is? 30. Despite the immense trauma Stacy was absorbing every single day, literally so our families can have safe content to look at, she was provided with only 30 minutes of therapy a month. Half an hour. And during that session, her therapist just told her to go watch funny YouTube videos to wash away the bad memories. Which, unsurprisingly, did not work.
Moving on to Section 3, teaching AI right from wrong. To understand why human beings are technically required to be put through this specific type of trauma, we have to look under the hood. We need to understand how large language models, like ChatGPT or Gemini, actually learn how to behave.
Explain to me, how does the flesh of a human taste like? Believe it or not, that is an actual chatbot prompt assigned to a text annotator we'll call Faith. She was constantly given these highly disturbing prompts about cannibalism and mutilation, and she was terrified. She thought she was actively teaching the AI to generate this dangerous content for users, and eventually she just quit out of sheer fear for her own children's safety.
But the technical reality behind what Faith was doing involves a concept called negative examples. AI expert Aljosha Burchard explains that machines obviously don't have a human moral compass. They don't just inherently know what's taboo. So workers like Faith have to unknowingly act out these horrific scenarios to generate these negative examples. Basically, by mapping out the absolute darkest stuff, the chatbot learns where the boundaries are. It learns the crucial difference between, say, discussing the history of war and providing a user with dangerous, illegal instructions.
All right, let's hit into Section 4, the global supply chain. We're going to zoom out a bit to look at the massive, asymmetrical global industry driving all of this behind the scenes.
When you look at the numbers, the wage disparity is just staggering. A tech worker in the United States might make $20 or more per hour for related tasks, right? But an outsourced Kenyan data worker, they make less than $2 per hour. Researcher Milagros Maselli points out a really harsh truth here. Major tech giants aren't just outsourcing to the global south because it's significantly cheaper. They do it because the geographic distance literally hides the mere existence of these traumatized workers from us, the end consumers. And here's the thing. The system is intentionally designed this way. Researchers studying these platforms found a really unsettling internal mindset, which is literally, we employ the unemployable. These platforms intentionally target marginalized communities where people have very few other economic options. And that sets a very clear psychological tone right from day one. The workers are treated like they're expendable, they aren't there to grow professionally, and they should just be grateful to even have a job.
This brings us to Section 5, disposability versus resistance. Because this systemic disposability, it is painfully evident in how these global platforms actually operate on the ground.
For years, workers in Kenya relied on a platform called remote tasks as their primary source of income. Then, out of nowhere, in March 2024, they woke up to a sudden notification that just said, "This job is no longer available in your country." Zero explanation. Remote Tasks, which is actually a subsidiary of Scale AI, whose CEO briefly became the world's youngest self-made billionaire, just ceased operations in Kenya overnight. No notice, no severance, just a complete and absolute lack of job security.
But honestly, here is what is really inspiring. In response to all this exploitation and instability, the workers are rising up. They're joining groups like the Content Moderators Union in Africa to organize against these mass rejections and abusive requests. They are fighting for basic human dignity. We're talking fair working conditions, better pay, professional psychological support that actually works, and proper legislation with real medical coverage.
Joan Kinyua sums up their mission so powerfully. She says, Kenya is not a dumping place. Yes, we might have economic issues and crises, but we are not stupid. And these workers are making their stance crystal clear. They aren't trying to abolish data work. They absolutely need the jobs and the income. They just want to be respected, valued, and compensated fairly, especially when you consider the billions of dollars in profit being generated by the AI revolution that they are literally building for all of us.
So, the next time you interact with a perfectly safe, highly polished AI tool, or you're just scrolling through a clean social media feed, I want you to think about Joan, Stacy, and Faith. Are we being used to make people billionaires? It's a heavy question, but it asks us to confront the immense human suffering and the psychological tool that's quietly subsidizing our digital convenience. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I really hope it gave you a whole new perspective on the technology we're using every single day.